Welcome to Beyond the Veil, the channel that reveals what lies beyond what we see and know. Here, we dive deep into stories that go far beyond appearances, exploring mysteries, secrets, and invisible layers that make up our world. Whether uncovering forgotten historical secrets, legends and folklore, supernatural phenomena, or hidden truths in our daily lives, each episode is a journey to discover the unknown. And who guides this enigmatic journey is Francelina, our host with a passion for stories and mysteries. With an insatiable curiosity and a talent for turning facts into captivating narratives, Francelina takes us on a deep exploration of each topic, always with a touch of suspense and fascination for the occult. Get ready for an experience where mystery and knowledge come together. Lift the veil with us and discover what often stays in the shadows.
Charleston, South Carolina, early 19th century. Imagine a city with narrow streets paved with stones, filled with merchants, travelers, and people from all over. During this time, roads were dangerous, and many who traveled to Charleston chose local inns to rest and, of course, to protect themselves. But not all inns were safe, and some stories of disappearing travelers began to catch the public's attention. Among these inns, one particularly sinister stood out, the 6 Mile House. And who was behind it? Lavinia Fisher and her husband, John Fisher. Lavinia was no ordinary figure. It's said that besides being beautiful, she was also very charismatic, able to gain anyone's trust. However, behind that smiling face hid something dark. A woman who, to this day, many say was the first serial killer in the United States. The 6 Mile House Inn was located about 6 miles from the city, an isolated place yet convenient for travelers coming from afar. However, something strange began to happen. People who stopped there to rest began to disappear. At first, these cases were considered isolated incidents, but over time, the number of disappearances grew, and they all had one thing in common. The last time they were seen, they were at the inn of Lavinia and John Fisher. Rumors started to spread, claiming the inn was a trap. Some spoke of screams at night, while others swore they saw people entering there and never coming out. Lavinia and John continued to act as friendly hosts, but many believed that behind this facade of hospitality hid a well-organized criminal operation. To understand the fame of Lavinia Fisher, we need to understand what was said to be her modus operandi. According to reports from the time, and of course the myths that grew around this story, Lavinia was the one who attracted the victims. With her warm demeanor and beauty, she would approach travelers who arrived at the inn and make them feel welcome. It's said that, after gaining the guests' trust, Lavinia would invite them for tea. But this tea, according to the legend, was mixed with herbs or substances that made them sleepy or even unconscious. She would ask the guests about their belongings, and while they relaxed, she would listen and decide what to do. Here the story becomes even darker. According to some reports, the rooms at the inn were equipped with a kind of trapdoor bed. When the victim fell asleep, John Fisher would activate a lever, and the bed would open, causing the guests to fall into a basement below the house. There, they would be robbed, and in some cases, killed. Of course, this is what the legend says. We don't know how much of this is truly accurate, but the stories continued to spread, generating fear. Over the years, the reputation of Lavinia and John Fisher only worsened, and the residents of Charleston began to demand an investigation. In 1819, authorities finally intervened and went to the 6 Mile House to understand what was happening. The evidence they found, although scarce, indicated that something dark was indeed occurring there. Many reports say that in the inn's basement, valuables belonging to some of the missing victims were found, which increased suspicions that Lavinia and John were guilty. The couple was arrested, and the trial was a public event that caught everyone's attention. In court, the Fishers were accused of assault, robbery, and murder. Although there was no concrete evidence they had committed murders, the combination of circumstantial evidence and the collective fear of the population was enough to convict them. In the end, the couple was sentenced to death. But Lavinia, ever defiant, never admitted guilt, and it is said, seemed convinced she would escape the final sentence. While awaiting execution, Lavinia maintained her defiant attitude. In prison, she was described as a cold woman who showed no remorse. And, until the very last moment, she seemed to believe she would escape the death penalty. When the day of the execution arrived, she wore a white dress, and some witnesses report that she made no request for forgiveness or showed any sign of regret. According to the legend, before being hanged, Lavinia turned to the crowd watching and shouted, "If anyone has something to complain about my death, speak now or forever hold your peace." And, in a final act of defiance, she supposedly jumped from the platform before the executioner could do his work, taking with her the mystery of her true nature. Thus, Lavinia Fisher became a legend. To this day, her name is mentioned with respect and fear, and many residents of Charleston swear that her spirit still haunts the city, wandering in search of peace. The story of Lavinia Fisher is surrounded by mysteries, myths, and of course, the fascination with dark figures from the past. Was she truly a cruel murderer, or was she a victim of circumstances and popular exaggerations? We may never know for sure. Today, Lavinia is remembered in Charleston as a ghost, a legend that haunts the streets of the city. But what makes her story endure? Perhaps it's the fear we all have of the unknown, of not knowing what really happened in those dark times. Perhaps it's a reminder that some stories will never have answers, leaving imagination to fill in the gaps. And so, the story of Lavinia Fisher lives on, a woman who, to this day, challenges the truth and reminds us of the dark side of human nature.
If you enjoyed today's episode and want to keep unraveling the mysteries of the world with us, don't forget to leave a comment sharing your thoughts. Share the podcast with friends who also love a good mystery, and follow the channel so you don't miss the next episodes. This way, you'll help us take Beyond the Veil even further. Thank you for listening, and until the next journey through the veil.